The fourth altered character Nola is here, so let's go take a look at her kits, team comps, and rotations. First and foremost, Nola can choose any of the 5 elements as her own element. Each and every one of Nola's elements have different weapon passive and skill effects. With that in mind, I've made separate video guides for her, each divided into 3 parts. First part will be covering the general kit, while the second part will be a brief explanation of a specific element's passive and skill effect. Lastly, there's going to be the team comps and a guide for their rotations. Now without further ado, let's get started. First of all, we have Sonic Skyrider. Dodge then hold to summon Nola's bike on the overworld. Once mounted, you can let go of the dash button, and the only time that the bike will disappear is if you get damaged, stop moving, or accidentally press the dash button again. By the way, it also has this feature where you can execute non-boss enemies if you're riding the bike for more than 10 seconds. This doesn't have a cooldown either, so yeah, poor Zeke got bike creep. Moving on, let's head over to combat. Here's her discharge, Skyriding Slash. Cool animation and all, but unfortunately we will be cancelling this one most of the time. Next are the ground and airborne attack chains. The ground attack chain is called Wind Rider and the airborne one is Cloud Riding. Both of these will be empowered once Nola casts her skill, but damage wise we're gonna have to go with Wind Rider instead. Speaking of the skill, it's called Explosive Energy. Once casted, we will gain temporary invincibility and deal some damage. After that, we will enter Super Speed mode and gain Hyper Body plus the empowered normal attacks, called Super Sound. At the same time, each attack landed grants 1 stack of Overload up to 6 stacks. Now where do we use this Overload stack? The only way to consume the stacks is by using the Twin Slashes and Link Slashes combo. These 2 attacks can only be used during Super Speed mode. Simply tap the attack button and hold to trigger Twin Slashes, then keep holding in order to follow up with Link Slashes. If you successfully consume 6 Overload stacks, you can trigger Extreme Charge and deal damage equal to 300% of your attack. By the way, we're not done yet because she also has a sub-skill called Flash Rider. This will appear after entering Super Speed mode for 5 seconds and can deal a good chunk of damage, but do take note that Super Speed mode will automatically end after using the sub-skill. Both Super Speed mode and Flash Rider have different effects depending on what element Nola is currently using. While some elements require you to use the sub-skill, some elements also don't, so you might find yourself simply quick swapping with her weapon. Alright, let's go take a look at her weapon advancements. At A1, Super Sound's damage multiplier is increased from 6% to 20% of your attack. A3 ignores 15% of the target's resistance and gains cheat death every 60 seconds. A5 is sustained, and A6 is the usual huge damage boost with a whopping 30% increase in final damage. Then we have her matrices, which are all generic damage buffs. The 2-piece increases attack by 24 to 30% and also buffs Extreme Charge multiplier to 400% of Wanderer's attack. Meanwhile, the 4-piece gives 24 to 33% boost in elemental damage and an additional 7% when we enter Super Speed mode. All in all, Nola's advancements and matrices doesn't make any drastic changes on her kit, so to be honest, if you're low on resources, a single copy is fine, but if you have extra to spare, then I suggest taking the 4-piece for the damage buff. Now, what does physical Nola have to offer in terms of weapon passive and the skill effect? For weapon passive, we have the usual Armor Dissolve and Fusion of Mass and Flame, then we also get Swift Cut. All of which are something that we should already be familiar with at this point in time. Moving on to the skill effect, which is a DOT to nearby enemies during Super Speed mode. Every time this damages a target, it grants us a 10-second shield. The shield's cooldown is 21 seconds, while Super Speed mode on Physical Flame lasts for 19 seconds. As for the sub-skill, we don't get anything, so there's no need to use it for physical. While we're at it, let's also cover what Altered Element does for Nola. First, we have Shifting, where we get 30% increased elemental damage if 3 altered weapons are equipped. Then we have Explosive Energy. Basically, what this does is it gives Altered Nola's normal attacks some increased damage. This effect can trigger up to 1 time every 1.5 seconds and is counted as normal attack damage. If there is one weapon of any other element equipped, the damage is further increased to 1.3 times. In addition, explosive damage can only be boosted by none other than Titan Equipment's rare stats. Now we take a look at the skill effect. Altered Super Speed mode lasts for 23 seconds, and during this duration, we get increased maxed HP. At the same time, Nola's Wind Rider and Cloud Riding gets additional damage equal to 166% of our max HP, not exceeding 30 times of our attack stat. This counts as skill damage and is unaffected by any damage boosting effects. Lastly, there's the sub-skill. Flash Rider for Altered Nola deals damage equal to 6,250% of our max HP. This damage does not exceed 1,000 times of our attack stat. It counts as skill damage and is also not affected by any damage boosting effects. Alright, before we jump right into team comps and rotations, if the team comp that you're using will have Anka on it, don't forget that if she's below A3, then you have to hold the skill for at least 2 seconds. The flow of each rotations with Anka is pretty much the same, but of course, since there will be a few second delay on lower advancements, you're gonna have to adjust the rotation by just a little bit.